Last summer, the Independent Record did a feature story on our project to update the county growth policy. The story summarized our project and some of the key issues facing Helena Valley, the focus of our current growth policy update. This presentation is another opportunity to learn and to have input into the planning process. We have been sharing our story over the past 6 months with numerous stakeholder groups, and we sent a citizen survey out to over 10,000 households in the valley to solicit widespread public input. These open house meetings are an added opportunity for citizens to get involved in determining the future direction of growth management policies. A big part of our story is the growth that happened between 2000 and 2010. This graphic shows that growth in terms of address points that were assigned for new homes built during that time frame or for new subdivision lots that were platted and ready for construction. That decade, that included both development boom and bust years, averaged about 600 new housing units being added each year. And it's not just the number of housing units being added each decade that is of concern. 6,000 new homes added to Helena Valley generates between 50,000 and 60,000 vehicle trips each day on the roads of the valley. Those homes pull in the range of 1 million gallons of water daily out of the groundwater aquifers that serve as the drinking water source for as many as 20,000 people. And a significant portion of that water volume is returned to those same aquifers after it goes through the septic systems of those homes. The 5,000 new units of housing built in the last decade were added to the pre-existing housing in Helena Valley. This slide shows the total cumulative housing in the valley up through the last decade. As of the 2010 census, the city of Helena had just over 28,000 people, while East Helena had just under 2,000. The rest of Helena Valley outside of the two cities had 24,000 people in 5 census-designated places, which are unincorporated areas of the county with at least 1,000 people concentrated in a defined area. The Helena Valley Southeast CDP around East Helena had grown by 2010 to over 8,000 people, while the northeast portion of the valley had a population of 3,000. Helena Valley Northwest had 3,500, and another 7,900 people lived in the west central area, south of Lincoln Road and north of Custer Avenue, along Montana Avenue and Green Meadow Drive. Finally, another 1,600 people lived on Helena's west side. The school district facilities planning process and other demographic studies indicate that over the current decade that will end in 2020, as many as 10,000 additional people will move into Helena Valley. No one knows exactly how many new people will come, but based on past growth, we know it is very likely to be somewhere between 5,000 and 10,000 new people. If this growth does occur, it is likely that there will be as many people living outside of the cities as in them. How will this growing population obtain the public services that are needed? What will the impacts of this growth be on current residents of the county? The county has a growth policy that was adopted in 2004. That long-range planning document contains policy direction for 7 categories of issues. Continuing ranching and agriculture is an obvious priority. Ensuring that development pays for itself and seeking commercial development to stabilize the tax base are also goals of the current growth policy. There are general recommendations for enhancing transportation and improving bicycle and pedestrian opportunities. Public access to open spaces and outdoor recreation opportunities is also addressed in the current plan. Fire protection has long been recognized as important to the people of this valley. A large focus of the 2004 growth policy was contained in the areas of environmental constraints and quality. And finally, the current growth policy calls on the county to pursue coordinated planning with the cities and adjacent counties and to promote good design of development. The 4 key issues we are focused on in this update of the growth policy for the Helena Valley area are: number 1, water availability both for existing and new housing; 2, wastewater disposal, which will either be on public sewers, large community septic systems or small individual ones. Thirdly, the conditions of our roads where development occurs, both in terms of traffic congestion and maintenance of the roads. And finally, the difficulty of providing fire protection for all of this new housing with a volunteer system of rural fire districts. We are focusing on these 4 topics because they come up at every planning board meeting and every subdivision review that comes before the county commissioners. Developers, staff, commissioners, and neighbors all struggle with these issues whenever a new development is proposed, and the county lacks adequate policies, programs, and regulations to deal with them. The purpose of this growth policy update is to find answers and set new policy direction to effectively address these key issues. Let's start with the topic of water availability. Neighbors come in at most planning board meetings to complain about new development affecting their wells. Is this just a case of people not wanting the land around them developed, or is there validity to their fears? In 2005, a group of 30 homeowners in the North Hills petitioned the Montana DNRC to establish a controlled groundwater area to limit the drilling of all new wells until the cause of their wells going dry could be determined. After extensive studies and tests of groundwater, DNRC determined that the wells went dry from a combination of drought conditions and withdrawals by high-volume community wells. That study predicted that if withdrawal rates continued, as many as 50% of all wells in the area could be affected. Over in the east side of the valley, at least 3 subdivisions have experienced severe water supply problems. A recent report done by the Water Quality Protection District indicated that the homes in one subdivision had pumped their aquifer to the point that the water table dropped 10 feet per year. The study predicts that in another 10 years, all of the homes would need to truck in water to meet their domestic supply needs. So this issue is very real, and it affects existing homeowners and those purchasing homes in new subdivisions. So for this first key issue of water availability, here are some basic policy questions to start a discussion. Number 1, how much concern is there for water shortages? 2, does the county have a responsibility to protect existing well users from new development drawdowns? And 3, does the county have a responsibility to ensure lot purchasers will have adequate water? If the majority of citizens think this is the state's problem, then the county can keep the current policies and just educate lot buyers and existing homeowners that they may not get water and may lose it in the future. If, on the other hand, citizens consider this to be an important and legitimate goal for county government, we can explore options for intervention, looking at both pros and cons of those options. The next key issue is wastewater. Of the 5,000 new homes added over the last decade, a significant portion of the 1 million gallons drawn per day is returned in septic system effluent to the aquifers from which about 20,000 people get their drinking water. In 1998, a major study looked at wastewater alternatives for the valley to size the Helena treatment plant upgrade and deal with failing lagoon systems. That study evaluated 6 alternatives for regional treatment of wastewater. It used a number of $10 million to upgrade the Helena plant and a range of $30 to $40 million to sewer the rest of the valley. It also projected user fees under those scenarios. The study results and recommendations came as no surprise. Per the high costs and low densities of development in Helena Valley at that time, the 1998 HOT study recommended just sizing the plant for Helena's needs and growth projections, and serving the rest of the valley with individual septic systems located in low-density, large lot subdivisions. Capacity was added to the Helena public sewer system per the recommendations of the plan, but no controls were in place to limit development densities in the rest of the valley, and a large number of high-density developments went in using independent community wastewater systems. The combined flows of those mini public sewer systems is nearly equal the design flow of the East Helena sewer system, but they don't have the management oversight of a public sewer system to make sure that the systems don't go wrong. We have an example of what it looks like when it does go wrong. The 10 Mile Creek Pleasant Valley Lagoons were designed for 300 plus homes in 2 subdivisions. It was out of sight and mind for the homeowners until the DEQ filed a lawsuit over untreated effluent dumping. A sewer district was formed and they sued with DEQ to seize ownership from the developer and system owner. The sewer district, made up of the homeowners, voted to spend over $4 million plus to rehabilitate the lagoons. The system currently under construction will actually cost more than $5 million and will involve government subsidies. The financial burden experienced by these homeowners was not just a result of being forced to comply with DEQ enforcement and court orders. Homeowners couldn't refinance or sell homes because of the legal cloud. This too is a very real problem for homeowners and the county. So here are some basic questions on the wastewater issues. Number 1. How much concern is there for groundwater drinking supply protection? 2. Should the county require professional maintenance of community septic systems? 3. Should the county pursue broader availability of public sewers? The third key issue we are looking at is roads. This is one of the most noticeable impacts of development. And it's not just the added traffic delays from congestion. Adding high volumes of traffic on roads not designed for it increases the need for maintenance and the cost of doing it. The county can't just keep adding up to 10,000 people each decade and not deal with the road issues that come with that increase. Much of the development is happening on roads like this, with inadequate drainage and gravel surfaces that erode quickly and create dust that affects air quality. The subdivision regulations require each developer to pay a proportional share of improving that road to full county standards as shown in the lower graphic. This reconstruction has an average cost of $1 million per mile. So, if developers pay a fair share of $200,000, where does the other $800,000 come from? The county hired engineers in 2005 to do an analysis of the infrastructure needs of just a portion of the North Hills area. That study indicated that improving the roads in just that area to county standards would cost between $16 and $24 million. As the county continues to develop, those roads and many others will need to be upgraded. Where will that money come from? Will the state fund local road improvements in Lewis and Clark County? Will taxpayers support spending millions on road upgrades to support new housing projects? Can the RIDs that maintain some of those roads absorb the costs? Should those building subdivisions have to pay for roads everybody else uses? If we ignore the problems, will they go away? So here are some hard questions on the topic of roads. First, is the road network adequate to accept new development traffic impacts to the tune of 50,000 new daily trips each decade? 2. Should the county develop a long-range plan for upgrading the everybody roads to accept new traffic? 3. Should developers and ultimately lot buyers be required to improve the roads leading to their projects as well as building their new subdivision roads? And here's the final issue facing Helena Valley, and it may be the most troublesome. In June of 2012, a fire started on the west side of the Scratch Gravel Hills. It burned over the ridges and down into the valley as indicated by these animations. It jumped the irrigation canal and Green Meadow Drive and started across the valley. Fire chiefs who fought it said flames in the sagebrush were 30 feet high. Thankfully, after 3 days of burning out of control, the wind blew the fire back on itself, and only 2,000 acres and 4 homes were burned. Last summer, the fire chiefs from Colorado Springs was speaking in Helena about how our area is like theirs, where 2 years ago they lost more than 300 homes to wildfires. 2 weeks after he returned to Colorado, they lost another 500 homes in another wildfire. Fire officials are very concerned about development in Helena Valley spreading up into high fire hazard areas. The reality is that the county can't stop wildfires from occurring. Many of them are caused by lightning strikes in dry season. But the harm they cause and dangers they present are very much affected by what we do or fail to do. Wildfires burning through forests is a natural process. Wildfires burning through home sites and neighborhoods is always a crisis, but it doesn't have to be a catastrophe. Fire experts have demonstrated that clearing vegetation around homes and using non-combustible roofing and siding can protect homes from wildfires. This vegetation management is a requirement of subdivision approval, but it is not actively enforced, and there are no county regulations on building materials. Another challenge for our rural fire districts is fighting fires without a public water supply system. Regulations require subdivisions to have water tanks or ponds based on standard specifications, but there have been serious problems encountered with the construction of those water sources in terms of accessibility and reliability. The firefighters need to know that water is available when they arrive at the scene of a fire. This was the actual condition of a pond in one fire scene. Instead of finding a pond full of water, they found a dribble in the middle. They have also pumped sand with water into their expensive equipment from improperly installed water pumps. We are seeing more development in the valley being built at densities equal to the city of Helena. But unlike the city, the county does not have urban design standards that adequately plan for such growth. Dense neighborhoods in Helena require on-street parking and wider streets. In the county, narrow streets can make them impassable for fire trucks in emergencies when those streets are lined with parked cars. This is a serious problem brought to our attention by those who are responsible for protecting lives and property in those new neighborhoods in the valley. Once again, some hard questions to process. Number 1, can the county sustain its volunteer fire protection systems with this kind of growth? 2, what measures should be taken to enable our volunteers to protect lives and properties? Thirdly, as development moves up into the high fire hazard hills, should more stringent controls be applied? As the county looks ahead to adding another 5,000 or 10,000 people in Helena Valley, these questions must be addressed. As we move forward with the growth policy update, we recognize that people have personal values and viewpoints that differ on development issues. Some people hold that the county has no business regulating development. It's purely a matter of the marketplace, and buyer beware. Others believe the county should strictly limit growth to the outskirts of Helena, where city services can be provided and streetcars can be reinstated to cut down on cars and air emissions. Such polarization can lead to policy paralysis. What is desperately needed is to identify common ground where stakeholders can respect opposing viewpoints and work together on common concerns. This presentation and this planning effort is an attempt to lay out some key issues where broad agreement should be achievable, at least on the reality of the problems, if not on every solution. Helena Valley will continue to develop with or without good planning and effective land use policies. We believe it is in everyone's best interest to come up with solutions that ensure water availability for existing homes as well as new development. Proper wastewater management will protect drinking water for all residents. Properly built and maintained roads are clearly needed to facilitate growth, as is adequate fire protection. We welcome your involvement and your ideas as we go forward with this important planning process. Here are some ways that you can get involved in the planning process. We encourage you during this open house to go around to the 4 topical displays and ask questions. Take a moment to write down your concerns and ideas and post them up on the display board so others can consider them and respond. Also, encourage your friends and neighbors to come to one of the workshops over the next 2 weeks. Thank you very much for your participation.